I mean, her music has accompanied me my entire life. It's, there's a dedicated, hardcore fan base of Françoise Hardy fans. She is and was a singer-songwriter who mixed different cultural styles. She became a kind of instant icon with her first hit, which was 𝗕𝗕𝗖 𝗡𝗲𝗄𝗵, all the girls and boys of my age. And it's that song in itself, at her first hit, represents that mix of melancholy, sweetness, tenderness, speaking of love and desire. We talk about Piaf all the time, but Hardy, Françoise Hardy, and that combination of feelings and sounds is so representative as well of an enormous part of French songwriting culture, chanson, as they call it.
I'm so interested that you use the word icon, because it is a word that we use too much, don't we? But I just wonder whether it is actually applicable to her in terms of what she means to France and to French music.
I think it's particularly applicable to her. I mean, you are talking about somebody who came up in the 60s and, just a few years ago was listed in Rolling Stone's top 200 singer-songwriters of all time. So not only was she iconic because of the music that she wrote, she was a great melodist and a lyricist. And that's where it all stems from. So the bedrock of it is writing and credible lyrics and music. She was also a fashion muse, because I don't want to say icon again, but she was a muse. She had this kind of look that matched her music and her perspective on life so perfectly. A look, and when I say a look, I don't mean it in an aesthetic, superficial way. I mean the look that she had with her eyes kind of was maintained her whole life. She, I think icon is overused, but in the case of Françoise Hardy, I think it is incredibly applicable.
And good that you point out how much of the, how many of the songs were written by her. I mean, she was a singer-songwriter because, people like Mick Jagger, Bob Dylan, they were infatuated by her. I think Mick Jagger called her his ideal woman, which sort of slightly gives the idea that she is just this pretty face, but she was nothing like that. She was so much more than that, wasn't she?
I mean, I'd like to think that the reason why Mick Jagger said that, and I'm pretty certain, is because it was so much more than just her looks. She was beautiful, and she was beautiful right up until the end. But she was a poetess with this extraordinary mix of tender and sharp. She had this incredible song. And if you don't know Françoise Hardy's music, just listen to one song. Listen to Mon ami la rose. My Friend the Rose. And it's that song just represents that tenderness, the musicality, the melodies, but also that little spike of sadness and a little bit of not being afraid to spike a little bit and to be strong. She was a strong woman who expressed herself. The way she dealt with her illness was remarkable right up until the end. She was publicly also addressing Macron. She wrote to him and reached out to him personally just a few weeks before things got really bad for her. And she, in an open letter, said to Macron, she said she was defending and wanted him to advance on the right to end one's life, saying publicly that although she was ill with an illness that would get her in the end, she was not in a state where she would choose to end her life. But in contemplating the end of her life, she wanted to preserve the right for others who were in that state to be able to do so. That gives you a sense of the kind of woman from a kind of humanistic way and her social engagements, engagement in French, that she had. So it wasn't just a pretty face. It was music, it was poetry, it was everything. I grew up listening to her as a child, but one day out of the blue a few years ago, about 12, 14 years ago, I got an email from a random email address. And it was her.
Wow.
And she started writing to me. She turns out she'd been listening to my music for a while. And she wanted to reach out to me about one song in particular, which is called Over My Shoulder, which I wrote. And we began this kind of pen pal exchange that lasted up until just about, I would say, 5 months ago. And I always asked her via email to meet her. And she would always reply, no, but I'm not well and I don't feel like you should see me. So I reserve the right to choose to meet you in another life, and it will be worth it, and it will be brilliant then. I just wish it had been in this one.